Hello and welcome to BPM Online's CRM Best Practice Webinar. Really appreciate your time today. We had a great response to this topic, obviously striking a chord, aligning marketing, sales, and service to build a revenue machine. So here we go. First of all, it's my pleasure to introduce, privilege really, to introduce our featured speaker, Paul Greenberg. Many of you know him. He's managing principal of the 56 Group, as well as the author of best-selling CRM at the Speed of Light, which is actually in its 4th edition. He's also better known sometimes as the godfather of CRM. And actually, I do believe he's in CRM Magazine's Hall of Fame. So, Paul, I hand it over to you, and we look forward to a great show.
Thanks, Mike. Actually, I've been spending the last few years being called the grandfather of CRM. I'm kind of getting up there. Okay, so what I want to do today is go through, which is something that is actually not just necessary and important for your organization, but is also a trend we're beginning to see in companies around the world, at least in part, and one that's aligned very well with the changes in what customers are thinking and how they're going about things. Now, before I do that, I just want to mention one thing. There's a lot of material in these slides, and I'm not going to cover all of it because that would be a 5-hour presentation. But the slides will be available through BPM Online, and Mike can give you the details after the presentation ends on how to get them. They're freely available to you. So with that, let's begin by disabusing you of a notion that you probably have. What I hear constantly when I'm out there is we have been through this massive business revolution. And you know what? It's not true. What we actually been through is not a business revolution, but a communications revolution that's impacted every single institution on this planet and almost every individual. It's transformed how we communicate, with whom we communicate, what we expect of the communication, the devices we use, the time we communicate, and how and who we trust. It's also impacted, and this is fundamental to this revolution, how we create, how we distribute, and how we consume information. And this is a never turn back kind of revolution. Now, when I say it's impacted every institution, I mean, yes, it's impacted business, but it's also impacted governments, it's also impacted social clubs, it's also impacted sports teams, it's also impacted political institutions of any kind that you can imagine, and it's impacted them in ways that have transformed us to becoming either digital customers in business or digital constituents in the political arena. Now, obviously, for the purposes of what we're talking about, we're going to focus on the digital customer. Now, aside from the fact that you're all digital customers, so that's who the digital customer is, there's a lot of things that are really important about what a digital customer does and what he expects and what he or she wants to deal with. First and foremost, remember this. A digital customer understands the power of their peers, that there are people like them, and we'll get into what that means in a second, who they can trust, and we'll get into that in a second, that they can trust to collaborate with, coordinate with, and communicate with, to have the kind of impact on the institutions, business included, that they need to have in order to leverage what they have to get what they need. At the same time, their expectations have changed dramatically in terms of what they need. In the past, the the customer wanted good products and services. Now, the reality is, given the transformation of supply chain from Amazon and others, e-commerce, when it comes to convenience and efficiency, they can get good products and services from mom and pop shops as well as large manufacturers without a big problem that are equally good and for the same prices. So what do they want more? Now they want, in addition to that, they want tools and they want what I call consumable experiences so that they feel as if the company values them. And again, feel as if. And again, all of this will come to the fore throughout this presentation. So what's the critical facet? The critical facet is trust. And all the ideas of alignment and everything else are based on the fact that customers, A, trust their peers, and B, don't trust brands as much as they used to trust their peers. Now, when it comes to brands, you've seen these numbers, I'm sure, right? Brand trust is always seen as very low. How much does a customer trust the brand about itself? And you see various numbers. Forrester does reports. A lot of these guys do reports. The numbers tend to range in percentages. 10% of the people, up to 53%, say that they trust the brand about the brand. But then they start looking at the other issue of brand trust, which is, do you trust recommendations from your friends or family? First and foremost, and 72 to 94%, again, depending on who you believe, do trust those recommendations far and away more than they do trust the brand about itself. And you could say, okay, well, that's easy enough to understand, self-interest and all that. The brand is self-interested in promoting itself, so why would you trust it? It's only looking out for itself. Well, that's actually a big problem, and we'll get to that in a sec. Back in 2000, a study began emerging. It was called the Edelman Trust Barometer. And the Edelman Trust Barometer is a trusted source on who is your most trusted source. Now, the interesting thing about the Edelman Trust Barometer is back in 2005, a category appeared for the first time called a person like me. Now, if you look at who the most trusted source was that year, and I think you'll appreciate the irony when you hear this, it was a financial advisor. You see where we got with that one, right? So now, though, a person like me appears, and a person like me meaning someone who you feel is like you. And you know who those people are. You know why? How you know? Because when you go to a review site and you start looking over, okay, what restaurant do I want to eat at that serves the food I want, and you find 20, 30 reviews like that, you're not reading a review saying, do I trust this? Don't I trust this? Do I trust this? You know what you're saying? You're saying, okay, well, that one says this, and that one says this, and that one says this. Service is good, food is great, service stinks, food is even better, and you're making judgments based on those reviews, but you're automatically trusting the source, even though the only thing you may know about that source is they have an email handle of rabbiddog@gmail.com. So, but you trust them because you feel as if they are a person like you. So in 2005, right, you see for the first time a person like me, person like you, comes up as a trusted source, and 23% of the respondents say that is their most trusted source. Fast forward to 2014, or 2015 actually, and it's 82%, meaning peer trust is the primary form of trust when it comes to how a digital customer operates. And as you can see, if a digital customer is operating and trusts you and likes you, then they'll do good things for you. And you can look at the bars on this slide where you'll see on the right side, the blue stuff says, hey, we're doing good stuff. And on the left side, it says, hey, we're complaining and talking about you because we don't trust you. So, you're dealing with a situation now where trust is a foundational piece of why you should align everything, and we'll get to it. There's another piece, though, and it's another thing that we've seen because of this communications revolution. If you go back about, 4, 5, 6 years maybe, you started seeing all this talk about multi-channel. Okay, and what did multi-channel mean at the time? Well, multi-channel meant that the customer, we as businesses had to find out what the customer's most preferred single channel was and then optimize to that channel. Well, guess what? Nobody operates that way. Not anymore. We're now omnichannel. And when I say omnichannel, I just want to preface it by saying that's probably the world's worst word. But at the same time, it's the only one we got for it. So what is that? Well, take a look here at this slide, all right, and take a look at what you see on the right. What you're actually viewing there is a conversation between me and my niece when she turned 18, and my wife and I had decided to buy her a laptop for her birthday. All right, so the conversation starts with her writing on the right, you'll see it. It's a tweet, a public tweet. At P. Greenby, I need your cell number. Hashtag love my uncle. Hashtag miss you guys. Now, my niece is one of those people like, out of 140 characters, 130 characters are hashtags and the other 10 are what she's actually looking for. So I DM'd her my cell number. Now, I want you to start thinking channels as I say this. I say, hey, girl, and there's my number. I'll be around tomorrow. If I don't pick up, leave a message. I'll get back, promise. Then I didn't hear from her. So then I went to Facebook and said, hey, you want to talk during the week about the laptop? If it works, we can get it next weekend. And then I said, did you get my cell on Twitter? I DM'd you with the number. Now, I want you to think about that conversation alone. I'm on Facebook saying, did you get my cell on Twitter? I DM'd you with the number. She said, yes, I got your number. I'll text you so you have mine. Then over on the left there, you see a text sequence, a text message between her and me deciding when we're going to talk on Skype. Now, I want you to think about that. We talk on Skype, and then what happens, right? We go and buy the thing at the store. There are 6 channels there in one conversation over 2 days. And here's the thing. She didn't sit there being a digital native. She didn't sit there thinking, let's see, what channel am I going to communicate on that's optimal for me? She just talked. And you know what? Here's the deal. I didn't think so either, and I'm on Medicare. This isn't a generational thing. This is something where, in fact, every one of us is starting to just naturally use channels that are really not even channels. We're using devices that are appropriate at the time we're using them. And that's what businesses have to now deal with. It's a big deal. I mean, we're starting as customers to expect that businesses will communicate with us the way we want to communicate, when we want to communicate. And we're expecting a lot more, too. We're expecting different forms of information as customers now. We're looking at, the standard marketing collateral we've always all got. Yeah, we still look at that, and nobody here should be denying that. You know you do, right? We're also, though, looking at opinions. We're looking at reviews about brands. We're looking at conversations going on out on Twitter or on Facebook or somewhere about brands. I know when I was buying a new car, I went on to Facebook and asked everybody's opinion about what they thought I should get and why. And I got over 150 people who responded with information that was immensely valuable to me. And that's a combination of opinions, reviews, and conversations about the brand all in one place. We're also looking, though, and this is very important to the alignment side, subject matter expertise. And that's really critical. Again, we're looking for the content to be made available to us that we need to make an informed decision. And you know what? A lot of that time we're not looking at dealing with human beings about it. We just want to be able to go on the web and get it in some form or another. But that's not all customers are looking for, because we're also looking for a different relationship to the company. We're looking for not only a person like me, we're looking for a company like me. Now, how does that reflect itself? That means that I, as a customer, as a digital customer, want to feel that the company is responsive to me and knows enough about me to give me what I need to make that decision from a personal standpoint, not from a demographic standpoint. I don't want people to just give me information that says, hi, you're Paul Greenberg, you're over 65, you're a crazy, insane New York Yankees fan, sorry, Mike, and you're someone who has an income level X and likes to read. Now, what I want them to do is Paul Greenberg with all the other details too, a company like me. But that means, especially in a B2B environment, that salesperson that I'm dealing with becomes the human face of that company. They sold me the deal that when I got a problem, I'm not going to customer service. You know what I'm doing? I'm going to them and saying, fix my problem however you have to with the rest of your company. And when I need information about a subject, I'm going to them saying, hey, man, you're the guy, you're the expert here. You sold this to me. What is it you can tell me about X, Y, and Z? And I expect you as a person to be available to me and at my convenience. That's a lot. So what then is the impact when it comes to business? Because what that's saying is that the market is shifting from a seller's market to a buyer's market. No, let me rephrase that. The market has shifted from a seller's market to a buyer's market. And here's a quote from Barry Traylor from CSO, which was recently acquired by MHI Global, but they're maintaining their brand. It's well known that buyers have taken a greater role in educating themselves about possible solutions to their various needs. They have, in turn, relied less on a rep's product knowledge and have instead increased their demand for rep's understanding of the buyer's industry, their organization, and their business challenges, meaning personalized response. Now, here's the thing. We know this from the buyer side. This is what you're seeing here is a buyer's experience. It's not the customer journey, okay? I just want to make that clear. Customer journeys are sloppy. This is very nice and neat, and this is what we wish a buyer would do step by step, okay? But I want to go through that briefly so you get a feel for it so we can get into the alignment side directly. First, understand something. When we're starting to look for products, and we all know this too, what's the first thing we do? We want information, right? We want to know what's what. But the thing is, we don't necessarily know every product or service that is available for us in this field. And in the meantime, we're getting bombarded every day with thousands and thousands of messages that are just blowing our heads off when it comes to, digital messages and direct snail mail kind of messages and you name it. The number that you hear, which is more urban myth, I think, than anything else, is 3,000 a day, right? And a marketer's job nowadays is to not just be competitive, but is to provide you with signals so you can separate it from noise that basically gets to the heart of a very simple question is, why in God's name should I pay any attention to you at all or even look at you whatsoever? Right? Because I'm getting all these other messages that may have nothing to do with what you do, but they're messages, and why should I look at your message first? And and you tend to look at it, but and look, what you know though is when you're operating to around a specific buying experience, right? That the first thing you're going to do is some sort of web search, but ultimately you're going to keep returning where? You're going to return back to the vendor sites. You're going to turn to your peers, and you keep going to them over and over. Where in the web search is just like an initial thing, and luckily the other place you tend to go is industry analysts and people like that, which means that I will have a job tomorrow. Thank you. But that's when you're doing the research and evaluation. You're starting to look at things that way. Now, the interesting thing is when you make your decision, and this is why alignment becomes important, and you'll see here on this particular slide, which comes from a report that Demand Gen did on results when it comes to the kind of alignments or reflects the kind of alignments we'll be talking about. If you look at the second number, it says that 65% said winning vendors' content had significant impact on the decision to buy, which means marketing is intimately involved in providing materials in the phases when the buying is still in the opportunity phase. Now, I want you to think about that for a minute. In the past, that was not the case. What was marketing's purpose? Lead gen, demand gen. That's what marketing did primarily. When we got to this new world of digital engagement, and you even talked to me about it, say a year ago, I would have said their job was the first line of engagement, right, which was that get attention part. But now, as I'm seeing, it's more important that, or equally as important that as the opportunity progresses, that the vendors are providing significant key personalized content to the prospect to try to get the deal closed. The other one is the second one down below, right below that. 62% said the vendor had the better mix of content appropriate for each stage of the buying cycle. Now, the reason you see it says sales, marketing, and service is because one of the values of customer service when you're looking at integrated process and also aligned departments is that the intelligence that they pick up about the buyers when it comes to service discussions that benefit the salesperson in the course of their efforts with the potential customer. So the results are very much there. So you're looking at decision-making that actually will benefit, and we're just seeing the lightweight part of it now, that will benefit as a result of alignment between departments and integration of processes in those departments. Now, before we go on, Mike, is there any questions that you that are out there that we should address?
Yeah, Paul, actually, I forgot to do a little housekeeping up front. Luckily, you covered the point that I was going to make, that the presentation is available to folks we can deliver it to them after the webinar, but also that we will be fielding or trying to field questions throughout the show, and luckily a few people did find the question button and posed a couple questions. So okay. Why don't we at least field one of them here? Okay. And I don't know if there's a single answer for this, but within the next 3 years, what communication channels do you think will be used the most by customers when interfacing with businesses?
Here's the thing. The answer is all of them, and I'm sorry to make it that kind of answer, but the reality is this. You know, Aberdeen did a study, which I actually do address in this in here, but Aberdeen did a study that they saw that the companies that are using best practices that are having optimal results when it comes to channel alignment actually have 7 channels that they deal with at least, and one of them up to 23 channels that they provide the capability to deal with. The reality is this: customers are, as I said earlier, customers are going to use what they use, and that's as simple as I can put it. Meaning, the phone's not going away; it's still a preferred way of dealing with consumer complaint. The email's not going away. There are 138 billion of them going out every day. Face-to-face isn't even going to go away, especially when you're dealing, let's say, with B2B. You know, you're starting to, and as you see with my niece, who's I guess she's the generation beyond Gen Y, if that's Gen Z, I guess. But they're just naturally using that 6 channels in 2 days. And so, you know, now the one thing I will say though, is that regardless of the fact that people think channel less, there are different protocols for every channel that you do have to account for, and different benefits and problems with each channel that you have to allow for too when you're building for that. But the tough part for business is that you're going to have to build for them all, and if you really want to go optimally, at least as Aberdeen's research indicates, that's 7 channels at a minimum that you're going to have to account for. And, you know, they're sort of the obvious ones, the email and phone and, you know, Twitter, it's social channels, I guess, if you want to look at it that way. The web itself, you know, self-service kind of stuff too. I mean, things like that. So, yeah, and then the only place that there's going to be any caveats toward that is that industries will be dependent too, because a lot of industries like manufacturing, or let's say a lot of actions with government, let's say, take place on the web and via the phone, and a lot less via Twitter and Facebook. So, you know, it's going to vary on the one hand, and on the other hand, you have to prepare for all of them. So,
I would say, Paul, I'd agree with that, and it depends on the persona or the person, because they all have their preferences. Certainly, I can tell you my 16-year-old daughter prefers text and won't talk to me and won't email me. It's text and text only lately. But you do need to prepare for all of them. Maybe we grab one other quick question, and that is, and I know you kind of alluded to this, that you see more and more sales being the main point of contact, but how is it possible to have only one person in a company be that point of contact when it goes across marketing, sales, and service? And I think you raised your hand for the sales being the centric piece, but you know, what's it take to put all the information in that person's hands?
Well, you know, you'll see it in a few minutes, but actually, I was just using sales as an example. Actually, every person who's touched has to be ready to be that point of contact on the one hand. On the other hand, what you have now at least in the technology industry, which is starting to gain some credence beyond technology and is being pushed by companies like Ernst & Young and others, is what they call customer success managers, right, who do actually become a point of contact for companies and whose job is to be on top of a number of accounts, by the way, and they don't have revenue goals. Their goal is help that other company be successful, so that in effect they become the directors of traffic, so to speak, when it comes to needs of a company with their account. So on the one hand, you have to have the company prepared that whoever that at all different areas, sales, service, marketing, the person who is there has to be prepared to be able to handle the issue. On the other hand, you can also go the route of, and it's not an either or necessarily, you can have both too, success managers who are assigned accounts of significance, and then their job is to be the director for that account toward solving the problems for that account. So there are things out there now, and as I said, the success managers right now are pretty much the tech industry and not much beyond that, but there is a move now for other industries to adopt. So, you're talking about something that's pretty significant here, in terms of what it's going to take for training and education. Companies like IBM have attempted to turn that big ship by training everyone to be a customer access point when the need arises. So, and
agreed. Sorry,
so they have a lot. Good.
I was just going to say, so regardless of what role you place in that single point of position, they have to have access to all the right information, and obviously aligning marketing, sales, and services is, goes a long way to doing that.
We'll actually see a brief case study a little later on the government of Singapore and how they've actually done that in a particular instance.
Okay, let's go.
All right, so now we're going to start briefly, and I'm going to do it briefly given time, a look at each of these pillars, and there's a lot of material in this that I'm going to skip by. All right, so first to understand, we discussed it earlier, what's a 21st century salesperson look like? And we'll be looking at sales now. They're a point of contact, they're a service rep, they're a subject matter expert, and their job is to collaborate with the customer as a partner. And their job is also to interact with other parts of the company, the marketing and service guys, to help get problems solved. So they have a lot of hats they have to wear. Now, in the meantime, they're under, of course, revenue pressure all the time, so it's hard for them to see doing that. So they have to, but what you see is that when you start aligning, let's say, marketing and sales, and we'll go to that in just a minute, when you start aligning marketing and sales, you see that their opportunity for both, meeting their own revenue objectives increase because of the fact that they have the relationship to marketing, not despite the fact they have the relationship to marketing when it's done well. So, you're dealing with a whole new universe and a lot of new pressures on salespeople, but at the same time, a redefinition with alignment actually helps those salespeople to do their job better. And we're seeing that through the numbers themselves. The final case study will take a look at that alignment of sales and marketing in particular and show you a mind-blowing, literally mind-blowing case study that shows you how that actually works. So that's on the sales side. And again, this is all extra material that comes with the presentation if you'd like it. So you're looking now at a sales culture that with the alignment of process, with the integration of process, with the alignment of the departments, we're looking at a sales culture that actually pushes collaboration, and a large number of companies, especially at the enterprise level, are beginning to take advantage of that kind of capability. So, on the one hand, marketing is then providing sales with subject matter expertise and materials and content, where service is providing sales opportunities and intelligence on customers, so that you're getting a much better functional company, and the silos are beginning to disappear. Now, we're at early stages in this. So here's a brief case study on something that was done a while ago, actually, on a sales and marketing alignment around Caterpillar, the machinery and equipment company. As far back as 2008, they realized that they were going to have to move on to social networks and start utilizing their salespeople to start interacting with their potential customers because of the kind of pressures that were out there for these large ticket item, and these are very large ticket item B2B sales. So the first thing they did was actually a blog on electric power generation in 2008. And they literally it was just a blog, straightforward. But it got a huge response. Comments were open, a constant discussion. That led to, in 2011, a 3-day symposium on generator set enclosures. Now, I'm reading you that. You know why I'm reading you that? Because I have no idea what a generator set enclosure even is. Okay? So, but apparently 2,000 people did and attended. And this was, while the sales department was there and the content was there at that 3-day symposium. Sales and marketing worked together. The customer service was there to handle the actual flow to the conference itself. And the net result was sales leads just galore from this conference. In fact, one that was just sort of odd, but interesting was that somebody literally, as it was at the conference, said, hey, because we have to rent 740 dump trucks from you, let's seal the deal here. And they did. This was a hugely successful initiative that Caterpillar ran out of Peoria, and they still are running. On the one hand, they looked functionally across all the silos. On the other hand, they understood the idea of interacting with their customers. On the third hand, they utilized their marketing and their service departments to actually help them build this whole initiative, and the results were a series of closed deals. So that's the kind of thing we're looking at. Now, with marketing, we're starting to see marketing transformed. And, as I said earlier, you were seeing marketing going from pushing messages and driving, being competitive to getting attention and being a first line of engagement, and now, even more important, to retaining prospects and continuing the engagement of those prospects via content and subject matter expertise, which is quite the deal, right? So marketing is transforming, and we went through some of this material, but on the idea of first line of engagement and continuing the engagement. But here's the interesting thing: why the subject matter expertise part over the last few years? Because on the B2B cycle in particular, we're now seeing numbers that are starting to tell us that 80% of the buyer's journey is done before they ever contact a vendor, meaning you have highly informed buyers who've done the work. And you saw those numbers earlier on when it looked at how vendors are going about doing that buying analysis, which is, they're doing initial searches on the webs, they're going to the vendor websites, they're communicating with peers, and other customers, they're contacting industry analysts, et cetera, et cetera. They're doing a lot of work because, you know why? Because, as I said, the communications revolution drove the fact that they can create, distribute, and consume information that in the past they had no access to at all. So that the 80% of the journey being done is huge. Now, here's the thing. You have to be expert by the time they get there. But the other thing is a lot of people get frightened by that. The reality is that's a huge opportunity. I mean, think about it. 80% of the buyer's journey is done. They contact you, which means you must be serious if they've already been through 80% and they still are contacting you. So this is the real deal. So marketing has to nurture those leads, but just really nurture people with the content that they need to continue the engagement in the course of the opportunity. And, what we're seeing, Forrester found out that if you do this well, you're not only generating more leads, but you're generating 33% lower cost if you're starting to get the right material out there at the right time. So, the strategy now is, okay, we know the customer's on this journey. We know that they've done this work. We know that they're interested in being engaged with us. Why? Because that's the other part of the journey you always have to look at. It's not just what the customer's doing, but why they're doing something. What's their behavior indicate to you? How do you know? Customer journeys are sloppy, right? We like to put it into that ideal buyer's journey of 1 through 6, or 1 through 5. But the reality is it goes like 1, 2, 17, 219, 4, 3, 5, 4.5, 4.9, 2. I mean, it's sloppy, and you have to be able to understand that. Otherwise, you'll never understand the buying behaviors that are going on. Now, the thing is, if you do it well, and if you get the service people engaged, and they provide you with intelligence and opportunities that may appear, you get the marketing people engaged, they provide you with the subject matter you need, and also the initial lead itself. And you, as a salesperson, are engaged. Let's say, being involved with all the things you have to do to actually meet the customer and identify their needs and personalize the proposal and do all the things you do in a B2B environment, you'll begin to understand this, the journey as you have to, and that buying behavior will help you. Now, what are the numbers if it works? 15% revenue uplift if you actually do this, 20% customer satisfaction uplift, and a 20% reduction in customer service costs if you understand that buyer's real journey. Now we're going to briefly take a look at service, and then we're going to go straight to alignment. All right, understand something. Contact centers, as we know them, will continue in part, but for the most part, they're becoming much more than call centers. They're now going to be centers where omnichannel delivery is the key. And we're also talking about customers who actually are very interested in actually getting information themselves. Look, one thing we know about service interactions, 98% of them are just queries, right? That's all they are. They're queries that essentially say, what's your number? Or how do I return this? Or what's your address? As simple as that, 98%. Now, the interesting thing is you don't have to delight a customer around that. All you have to do is be good enough and be able to respond in the way they're asking you to. So if they say respond via email, respond via email. If they say I need to find this on the web, let them find it on the web. If they say I'm going to call you, let them call. In other words, do all the things you have to do to answer the query. Because they're not upset, they just want an answer. And that's typically the way they want it. It's a very utilitarian interaction with the business. They don't have to be delighted constantly. That's a myth. That's a complete myth. And there's an amazing set of studies that if anybody's interested, I can certainly get you copies from Harvard Business Review of about 3 or 4 years ago on 75,000 respondents on the issue of delight versus good enough. Now, interestingly, the key is, what is the key then when it comes to customer service, especially in a new generation of customers who have access to so many different channels? Well, the key is reduce the friction, make it simple, respond to make it easy on them when they actually ask you something. Don't make it hard. Here's a perfect example of that, and this goes to the heart of it, right? Singapore implemented about 2 years ago what they called no wrong door. And basically, they were having a lot of trouble with interagency response. U.S. had the same problem through the GSA and also, which is you call up and you ask for, like, here's the actual GSA question. Lady calls up. This is several years ago. It was told to me by a GSA leader at the GSA. Someone calls up and says, hi, I have a bear in my backyard. And she calls up Agriculture, Department of Agriculture. Well, they spend the next 20 minutes trying to find the right agency, and it turns out, by the way, it's Fisheries and Wildlife, and then putting her through to the right agency. This woman's panicking with a bear in her backyard, and they spend 20 minutes increasing her panic throughout. Now, they got to the right agency. It all worked out in the end. Nobody got eaten. Everything worked. But that's exactly what you don't do. So Singapore initiated in 2012-2013 the first responder protocol. That's what they call it. Meaning, no matter what agency you call, they are empowered to deal with your problem. If they need authority of other agencies, then they will take care of it for you while you're still, quote, on the phone or whatever channel you've used to coordinate it with. No matter what, whatever agency gets the query, regardless of how many agencies are involved, coordinates the effort. And you can see originally it was run by Agri-Food and Veterinary Authority, which is, Fisheries and Wildlife there, I guess, and Agriculture combined, and it was on animal feedback, same thing as the bear thing. But it was a wild success. And you know what they found? The constituent engagement level and satisfaction went up like, I forget the number, was somewhere in the vicinity of between 60 and 65%. Massively successful. Why? Because you've reduced friction. You've taken care of problems. And regardless of what agency was involved, the coordination and collaboration and integration of the agencies actually drove a highly successful campaign, or a highly successful program. So the service has to be good enough. Now, remember we said 98% of queries? Well, that's automatable stuff. Right? And you can use processes and rules engines for almost all of it. And that leaves the other 2%, which are problems, like serious, open the case kind of problems. You can actually take care of that with humans because most of this stuff gets automated. And the more you continually look at that from the standpoint of the use of that automation, the better off you are because you're taking care of things that don't need human interaction. There's always value to human interaction, but we don't have enough humans to handle one-to-one customer to employee response. So we have to pick and choose. So you automate what you have to. So let's look at what that means for alignment. Well, we'll start with sales and marketing, and then we'll escalate to service really quickly. There are a lot of problems that have typically existed in the siloed sales and marketing side of things. They don't connect. On the one hand, the cadences have always been very different. You know, marketing is kind of longer term, over time. They had no revenue responsibility. They were completely disconnected from any financial reality at all, and CEOs distrusted them. In fact, they did a study, the Fournier's group did a study a couple of years ago that said that 80% of CEOs don't trust marketers because of that disconnection from financial reality. The problem marketing used to have with sales was that, you know, on the one hand, marketing was responsible for corporate initiatives. On the other hand, sales was altering marketing content regardless of corporate initiatives, so it would be more appropriate to what they were doing. And then they all had different definitions of leads and handoffs, you know, so it created total disconnect. And this became a problem that other companies, that people became aware of. First was Professor Kotler, you know, in 2006 when he wrote a piece called Ending the War Between Sales and Marketing. But it was really Peppers and Rogers in 2008 when they wrote Sales and Marketing, the New Power Couple, that really nailed the problem directly and began identifying exactly what has to be done to correct this issue. So what do you do? You know, how do you align? How do you do these things? Sales and marketing have this very simply. It's planning and execution. It's planning and execution, and and definitions. You're defining how messages are put out, and how they can benefit sales and marketing. You're actually creating a definition of what is a marketing qualified lead, what is a sales qualified lead. You're identifying where the handoff occurs. You're coordinating all these handoffs. Marketing gets revenue objectives, and several years ago, in 2008 and 9, people began recognizing that this was the case and it was going on everywhere. In fact, you saw a lot of marketing automation companies calling themselves revenue performance management because marketing was, at the time, being assigned revenue objectives. And then marketing, when it comes to aligning, also becomes involved in the opportunities, as we discussed earlier, around providing content in the course of those opportunities and closure. Right, so you're dealing with a lot of different things that just simply need to be coordinated and effort, and there's a real benefit to doing that. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of approach. I mean, what tremendous benefit that occurs. You find out that, you know, well, guess what? If you do this right, you start seeing increases. Right, the best in class, almost all the marketers understand sales goals. The best in class, you see a marketing qualified leads lead to 209% better contribution to revenue. Best in class, it says 2/3 more probability that marketing qualified leads are going to close, meaning there is identifiable ROI that comes when you align sales and marketing. And over time, in the B2B market, it's particularly strong. Take a look at these numbers. I won't go through them all. Just note how substantial these are when you align sales and marketing, what actually occurs. All right. Now, what happens when you align sales, service, and marketing? Well, first understand how you have to organize it. It has to be organized around customer engagement, meaning right now you got customers who want an answer, want information, want to be involved with you in some level, anytime, and with anyone that they might run across. Secondly, you need a single view of the customer so that you can get a personalized response, right? Or you can provide a personalized response and have personalized interactions. And that means the customer record has to reflect all the data that you can think of, not just transactional data, but case data. It has to reflect marketing response data and click-throughs. It has to reflect social communication. All of that has to be part of a single view of the customer record. So that sales, marketing, and customer service can utilize what they need to help. Because here's the thing: a customer wants what he wants, right? They're not interested in KPIs at departments. They're not interested in any of that. They want what they want. So you have to understand their behavior. You have to understand what they want. You have to be able to provide them with the kind of thing that makes them feel as if you understand what they want in order to accomplish this, and it's the alignment of the three that allows it. Now, on the service side, of course, you're now dealing with the idea of this Omniservice, meaning if you go with the Singaporean model, meaning whoever takes the call becomes the coordinator, right? Meaning, you're responsible, then it's an Omniservice, and that's what customer success management can do too. But it also means you need a proactive staff, a staff that's actually going to suss out information. You're going to provide, and that means getting feedback from your customers. You're going to go out and provide them, and that's all going to get integrated into the improvement of process, into the improvement of the alignment. Why? Because the customer's saying, here's the kind of thing we're looking for. And yes, that may not involve this particular department's KPIs, but it does involve sales, marketing, and service, or it does involve sales and service, or marketing and service, and sales and marketing. Consequently, you have to adjust accordingly to meet my needs or to meet the needs of, let's say, a larger number of the customers. Additionally, you're looking at, thus, when you do that, the alignment means that marketing can provide instructional content to service, knowledge-based content for answers, meaning when I go online and I'm looking for information, marketing's helped me by designing content that fits into my knowledge bases to help me handle what I need to handle and to do what I need to do to get the answer I need as a customer. And service is providing intelligence on the pulse of a customer. What's good? What's bad? If I'm United Airlines and I'm a global services customer and the global services rep has had a good experience with me, you want to pass that on, especially given the high-touch service of global services. If they had a bad experience, you want to make sure I know that too, given the high-touch relationship. So these kind of things are very important. That impulse on that intelligence on customer pulse is really important. Plus, a service can upsell and cross-sell, and you do have people who support sales that way in multiple companies. That's kind of almost old school. It's been going on for so long. So, you're dealing with quite a bit when it comes to that. And ultimately, by focusing on the customer, and it actually allows you to align accordingly. You're not aligning from a siloed departmental standpoint. You're aligning from the standpoint of what customer need is and understanding it all along the cycle of sale, of attention, of sale, of post-sale, right? And the technology side of this means that when it comes to integration of the three becomes not just a nice to have, but a must have. But do understand one thing when we're talking about process here, because we're talking about the integration of these processes. You had for many years, you've always had, business process management, and in the past you had these concepts like Six Sigma and others, but they tend to view process as agnostic. Right? Not BPM per se. BPM is neutral, but Six Sigma and others were viewing processes as agnostic. When I say that, I mean customer agnostic, meaning that we're looking at efficiencies. You're not looking at efficiencies with process. There are efficiencies that result in it, from it, but you're not looking at efficiencies. You're looking at processes, on the one hand, that are impacted by customers, and on the other hand, that impact customers. For example, many years ago, or a couple of years ago, I had a client call me, and this is a mid-sized client, and they had this really excellent process they had developed for a financial thing that was saving them $40,000 a year, which for a company, small mid-sized company, was pretty big number. But what happened was when they went to the web, it took them a long time, let's just say that. When they went to the web, they actually found that the process required them to get the customer to write in the same material twice. It was a glitch and the customers were getting kind of annoyed. So the question became, do we modify the process if we can? Do we get rid of it, or do we just leave it as is and keep that $40,000 saving? Well, it turned out it wasn't modifiable, so their only choice was either ditch it or keep it. So save $40,000 a year and piss off customers, or, get rid of it. You know what? They made the wise decision. They got rid of it because of what it hurt the customers. So it was impacting customers even though it was doing benefit for them. And if you isolate it, it looked very efficient. But the reality is it wasn't. Okay, so because it hurt customers, so it wasn't effective. So you're looking now at tech having to take into account, the processes have to take into account that customer impact. Now, finally, on the customer impact, the technology side too, is understand that we're being horizontal here. We're not being siloed at all. So when you're looking at, say, the customer journey itself, which has become one of the most important initiatives of probably this era, is identifying that customer journey and the behaviors of customers, that cuts across sales, marketing, and customer service. Cuts across all of it. And that thus, when you're designing your workflows and you're developing your business processes, you have to treat it in the context of that journey. Meaning, all right, queries, customer, doing all these things, what are the processes we need to give that customer that reduced friction so it allows them to effectively get the answers they need in the way they want. And that also impacts how the customer's journey and the behaviors of the customers go. And then the other side is, that we have to go external sometimes now for knowledge too, so that you're not just doing this thing strictly internally. You're starting to look internally and external. Just for an example of a human side of it, Microsoft, as you might know, sends out MVPs to monitor boards all over the place, just simply to get information, and then also to help coordinate knowledge, even though the MVPs work for a million other companies. It has nothing to do with Microsoft per se. It has to do with providing service through external sources and not providing knowledge through external sources to people who are participating, say, in user forums and communities and so on and so forth. So we have to look at internal and external when it comes to the search for knowledge. So we're looking at, in effect, I'll call it a functional glue. So we've got a big deal here. Now, before I get into this final case study to show you the power of how this works and the just absolutely mind-blowing power of it, Mike, any questions that...
Yeah, okay, Paul. So we actually have quite a few questions, and that's one of the reasons we let you fly through the last stop. But let me try and combine a few of them that covers a bit of ground, and in the concept of time, give us some pointed answers. There was a question about personalization. There was a question about account-based selling, which in a lot of ways is personalization of the account. And then there was a question about what are the benefits of combining or integrating marketing with service. So not marketing sales and service, but marketing and service. And, if I could just suggest my take on it, account-based selling became unpopular because it was not scalable. What really makes it scalable is automated personalization, being able to leverage information across the entire buyer's experience or customer journey. And really, the connection of sales and service is really an integration that gives you that benefit. It allows you to capture that information of existing customers, their behavior, their personas, et cetera, that you can leverage back to marketing. That's my take. What do you think?
You are on the money. I'll just make one small additional comment related to that is, keep in mind something about personalization. It's not really personal. It means it feels as if it's personal, meaning that's why it is automatable, right, is that the customer has to feel as if you are providing them with things that they can choose that make them feel valued. It's as simple as that. They have to feel valued. The idea of customer value is feeling valued. Where companies are, revenue and profitability, customers need to feel valued. Personalization makes them feel valued. Most of that is actually automated. Not all of it, but most of it. Again, automation's value is that it does, not only does it take care of a lot of this, but it frees up individuals to do the stuff that actually needs people. You don't always have to have a human being doing it. You have them when you need them, and you use automation when you don't, which is more often than not. So given what you described and given scalability, of course, because you're sometimes dealing with companies like Citigroup, which have 300 million customers, you're dealing with something that is, I'll call it, beyond human one-on-one human intervention. So, you're on the money as far as it goes.
Okay.
So, shall I take it to the final thing?
Sure, let's hear about O2.
Okay. So the reason this is a really interesting case study, and I will say, though, that this is focused primarily on sales and marketing integration, is because it's pure. When I say that, meaning this is a division of O2, which, as those of you who don't know, is an extremely large telco in the UK, well, in Europe, really, across the UK. It's headquartered in the UK. Now, back in 2011, they formed an enterprise division, but this wasn't just an enterprise division. They always, of course, address the enterprise. This was an out-of-the-box enterprise edition, meaning that they would go to large public and private sector companies and provide services that were kind of interesting, unique, and different. So, for example, experiential retail, meaning companies like Burberry would hire them to go and do things when you walk in the door, due to location-based services and geofencing and everything else, you would get a highly personalized offer when you walked in the door, and it would even potentially trigger like a big display where it would show on the display a video of something that you were interested in. That's experiential retail. So it was that kind of service. Now, the interesting thing is they started from scratch, and this is what makes it amazing. So they didn't have sales, they didn't have marketing, baggage to deal with, they didn't have to change anything. So initially they hired 150 salespeople and 20 marketing people, and the idea was we're going to be aligned from the beginning. We have nothing at all to start with other than the O2's name, and we're going to do the things we got to do to make this work. So what was the thing we had to do? First and foremost, it was, okay, let's plan together. The funny thing is, that seems, oh, duh, but a lot of companies don't do that at all. These guys said, we're going to plan go-to-market. So, and they said, we got some fairly serious numbers we have to hit. Year one, we have 4,000 target organizations that we want to sell these unusual services to, 240 leads. Okay, that's a lot of leads, actually, if you think about it, for year one. And some of them were vertically specific, some of them were more general, and they were tied, of course, to comp and the whole thing, the stuff you would ordinarily think. But what they just did do, and this is where they started differing, again, from the beginning, lead handoff. All that. Remember I said marketing qualified leads, sales qualified leads? That was decided from the beginning. What are they? When do you hand them off? Then accountability was assigned. But sales said, your job is to follow up on the leads. That's the key accountability here. And marketing job is to the number and the quality of the leads. Now, the other thing is marketing actually ran inside sales, meaning they drove the demand generation efforts, right? And not only did marketing and sales work together there, but they worked together on figuring out, all right, given we have a corporate need and that you salespeople have individual things you got to work on, let's work out both a chain of command so that when you need to alter our corporate stuff, we know about it. And on the other hand, let's develop joint talking points. So the bulk of what we're doing from the beginning, when it comes to our content, when it comes to campaigns, when it comes to collateral, thought leadership, the bulk of our content is delivered together, right? And in agreement. And then if you make changes, okay, we're already operating from a kind of joint talking point, so we'll have a simple procedure to get it approved, and we'll do that by developing a portal that actually allows you to the management to take a look at it, and they'll have a turnaround time that's very short to get the answer back to you if it happens to happen. In the meantime, revenue objectives were joint. Marketing did what are the requirements analysis for sales, and sales, worked accordingly. But here's the most interesting aspect, right? It's right here. This is where you can start seeing it. Now, you know how it works typically, right? Typically, you have a sales budget, you have a marketing budget, period, right? Here, they didn't do that. I want you to take a look at the budget allocation. I think this is amazing, okay? I truly do. 30% of the budget went to sales enablement and education, materials and like collateral. 50% went to content and communication development and activity. 20% went to data and systems. That adds up to 100%. Now, notice I didn't say 30% went to sales, 50% went to marketing, 20% was joint. I gave you what the thing went to, which are all joint activities in every single case. They started from the standpoint of being aligned with at the same time, still had separate responsibilities, separate duties, and were separate departments. But their budget was joint. That was amazing. Now, here is the mind-blowing part. And this is actually mind-blowing, by the way. It's so mind-blowing, but I went to a source I have at O2 and asked them to check to see if these were real because it was that mind-blowing. And they were. Okay, year one. Remember I said 240 leads? 304 delivered. 50 customers with a contract value of over $300 million and over $1 billion pipeline. That's year one. Now, that's because they approached it the way they did. I mean, again, they're selling out-of-the-box kind of edgy services. It's not that easy. But nonetheless, they did it. They succeeded as wildly successful and continue to be. These numbers, by the way, came from B2B Marketing, which is an online publication. It's a good one, by the way. So you're talking about something when it comes to the alignment of sales, marketing, and service, when it comes to the integration of process, when it comes to just the joint human endeavors that it involves, you're talking about something that in our era could be wildly successful. But without it, of course, we're getting hurt. So your options now are, we're having trouble, or amazeballs, look what O2 Telefonica did. So, or somewhere in between potentially. But we are now in an era where, given customer demands, this is what we need to start addressing. And this thing, if you address it well and you do it right, you'll just knock it out of the park. So with that, I will be quiet. Thank you for allowing me to go a little over. I really do appreciate it.
Great, Paul. We really appreciate it, and enjoyable as always. A little plug for your book, for sure. Certainly great reading. We actually extended the time on our platform a little bit, so we don't have to come to a complete halt. It's actually my job now to tie this back a little bit to BPM Online, and then we do have a bunch of other questions that we could field, so maybe we'll just give it a little more time. There is several hundred people viewing, and they have not dropped off yet, Paul, so we should keep delivering.
Okay.
Sound good?
Yes, sir.
All right. So, as advertised, this is me, Mike Rooney. I'm the SVP and General Manager of BPM Online, based out of Boston, sitting in the Boston office here. And I'm just going to really tie back everything that Paul said, because we are very well aligned, and how that ties back to BPM Online and what we deliver to the marketplace. So first off, this is meant to be a depiction of the customer journey. Maybe it's really the buyer's experience, because as Paul pointed out, the customer journey is even sloppier than this. But what this is really meant to show is along the left are the different channels. And so you have mobile there, phone, web, chat, text, God forbid, person to person. And the squiggly line is each individual's path. And we all have our preferences. And as Paul pointed out, these days, we really don't even think about what channel we're using. And the expectation is that our experience will be consistent regardless of what our path is across that. So from awareness, where I might learn of something through a tweet, I go online to compare things, I make a phone call to a friend or the company itself to help me make a decision, I purchase it online, and then ongoing service, you could even tweet in a particular problem, or Facebook the company with a particular problem. So the issue is that from the company side can look very random or very difficult to capture. And what it really requires on the company side is a more systematic approach, being able to tie those touch points to a consistent, interconnected process that goes, oh, by the way, from marketing to sales and on to service. So having a platform that's able to communicate from an omnichannel point of view, both listen and respond, and an underlying process engine that can interconnect the different functions becomes very important. So if we're looking at the two sides of the puzzle, from the customer's point of view, it's omnichannel, mostly digital, social, and again, from the customer side, the company side looking out, it can actually seem quite random. The reality is they're going left to right, and I know Paul had said a lot of times they may go left to right and back again and twirl in circles. You also need to be able to capture that and bring them into a systematic, intelligent approach, leveraging a process that allows to predict kind of those best next actions and integrate all the different systems. So, surprise, BPM Online brings exactly that to the table. We have a single platform that covers marketing automation, sales automation, and service automation. It is truly all the same platform, same databases. The underpinnings of that, a la our name, is business process management. So it comes out of the box, no additional charge for that business process engine, as well as out of the box best practice pre-built processes. So you can plug and play the ones that come out of the box and then modify them over time, or use them straight as they are. Matter of fact, in-house, we use the commercial sales process end-to-end, really without modification. What you will see is the benefits of having everything on the same platform. The 360-degree view of the customer, which we all talk about, actually really comes true here as from leads, I like to say leads to loyalty, from the leads process and marketing all the way through opportunity, contracting, invoicing, onto ongoing servicing. You're constantly capturing and enriching that contact customer profile. Likewise, the use of social media. We have an onboard chat function as well as Skype-like calls across the platform itself. You can use those whether you're in service, marketing, or sales. And you can certainly access for analytics and dashboards any component of the database of the system, regardless of your function. This is really just a snapshot of typical functions within each of these functional areas. And you will say, well, it looks fairly the same. And that's true because the interface is the same. Navigation bar on the left, nice clean presentation. It's not table-driven. It's much more social media look and feel, consistent across all the applications. So the two main things that BPM brings to the table is first, the ability for the customer to gain the agility to change processes quicker than ever. Meaning you can have a sales process in place, and when your customer base shifts to more of a online ordering type of process, you need to be able to change that process, very quickly and respond to it. So BPM Online allows you, even the end user, without coding and technology requirements, to make changes to those processes and put them live immediately, and then pull them back if you need to. So, A/B testing, prototyping, and all that. And then likewise, what we've been talking about all along here is we align marketing, sales, and service on a single platform. So there's no switch. So when a lead comes in, gets scored, gets qualified, it doesn't get switched to a different database when you move it into Salesforce Automation. We literally change the status of that contact and move it into a prospect. We are about 550 employees, or over 550 employees across the globe. We have offices in Europe, and again, I'm sitting here in our headquarters in Boston. And I should mention that more than half of our employees are actually directly in development. It means we have a lot of horsepower to develop the product and continually make quarterly-based enhancements consistently. We've been recognized by most of the industry analysts out there. You see here Forrester, Gartner, and Nucleus for different angles. One is CRM Suites for midsize. Gartner is the entire customer engagement center, which takes the customer journey from end to end. And Nucleus is, again, focused on usability and functionality. Also down the bottom are a bunch of our awards. Year after year, we continue to gain awards. Most recently, Paul's Hall of Fame is the CRM Magazine market leader for this past year. 3 different segments we won that in. So with that, if we want to take just another maybe 5-10 minutes and answer a couple other questions, Paul, if you're game for that.
I am.
All right,
I appreciate that. You pick them, I'm ready.
All right. So let me see. I had a couple picked out before I started going on there. I guess what are some of the most difficult things if people do have different components? I remember being VP of Sales and Marketing 5-7 years ago, and when I wanted to build a digital marketing, lead generation, Salesforce automation, servicing platform, I cobbled together 4 or 5 or 6 different components. Paul, obviously there's some difficulties in that. Where do you see, or what would you see as the most dangerous part of that, or what should people be looking out for? Because frankly, a lot of people are sitting with that type of environment.
So wait, let me see if I get the question exactly. Are you saying? I actually don't get the question. Could you say it again?
I'm sorry.
Let me I didn't quite understand what. you're saying there's a mess, basically there's a sales, marketing, and service. If people are looking to integrate sales, marketing, and service, what are the difficulties of that, or
right.
given what they have? Yeah. Oh, okay.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right.
Exactly.
All right. So, a couple of things. Number one is, honestly, a lot of people tend to look at integration before they even see what they do have, meaning they know they have stuff and they either try to cobble what they have together in a different way, or they do a haphazard job of dealing with that. Let me sort of outline something. I'll tell you by the way of an actual example of a company that did something very well that indicates how you should probably approach it. Several years ago, York, the HVAC company out of York, Pennsylvania, it's called York, actually decided that they were going to integrate sales, marketing, and field service in particular. But the first thing they did before they decided that we're going to integrate it was they said, all right, let's take a look at all the processes that are driving this company in all the areas, including everything else, but particularly those three, and of course. But they found, all in all, they had 325 processes that they could identify. When they began looking at these processes and they began looking at what their current needs were and what their current requirements were, they realized something along the lines of the following, and these are not precise, but approximately right, that about 60 or 70 of those processes were completely outmoded, not useful, not worth it anymore, right? So those were out. That another, I'm calling them 100, 150, so it's about 200 plus, were good as is. Now, again, these are the processes, not the automation of them. Then another 50, 60 could be modified. Well, actually, the rest of them could be modified, but, they threw out 60 roughly. The rest could be either modified or kept. And then there was a large number of holes that, given, again, against what they needed to continue their business in the way that they wanted to continue it, there were a number of holes, too, meaning they had to actually develop a number of processes also. And I don't remember the exact number. It wasn't a large number, but it was a significant couple of handfuls. So what they did was a complete process map beforehand, and then they were able to pare down, add, modify, and keep accordingly, which then gave them the ability to figure out what they needed to do when it came to integration, when it came to both integration, upgrading, et cetera, et cetera. And the results were just huge for them, and it actually generated some actions, for example, among their employees that were unexpected benefits. So, for example, back then when it was being done, one of the benefits of the technology was it had sort of, I want to call it a collaborative note-taking area. That's about the best way to put it. And so what they did for the field service agents, they built in a process that allowed the field service agents to submit content to this area, like tips on how to do something, which would then be, there was approval workflow that got it to supervisors. At the same time, there was also, they built in kind of a ranking capability so that when it was approved, you could see which were the most popular, which were the least popular, et cetera, et cetera. And then that was all compiled and then put out for the field service agents to take a look at when they were having particular knotty problems, and it had a very strong search capability. That was not even planned. It just, what happened was after week one, when the field service guys, the tech, realized that they could do it, just that they could, that they could use this capability because of all this streamlining and changing, that they had 1,200 best practice tips submitted in a week. So the idea really here is take a look at your process map first, everything, and then begin to build accordingly. It sounds like a big job, but honestly, in time, you'll save an enormous amount. You'll save an absolutely enormous amount of time.
Great. Thank you, Paul. So actually, we are coming to the close of our time, even though we did extend it. As promised, Paul, you offered an unbelievable amount of information. And folks, please contact us if you would like a copy of the slides. We did have a whole bunch of questions we didn't get to, though, Paul, in that answer right there, you probably covered 3 or 4 of them, so that was great. We'd be happy to circle back with you on these questions. Certainly happy to talk to you about any other questions you have, and we can loop Paul in at some point or get his opinion. But again, thank you very much. We're still hovering around 400-something people out there, so it's been very successful and obviously a very interesting topic for everybody. Thank you again, Paul.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and thanks everybody for sticking around so long.
Have a great day, folks.